Hello and welcome to today's episode of Owning Your Menopause. On today's podcast, I'm thrilled to be joined by an award-winning editorial director, presenter, columnist, and one of the UK's leading voices in women over 40. She spent 7 years as editor-in-chief of Good Housekeeping, the nation's best-selling women's magazine, and also held the role of editorial director across Hearst UK's lifestyle portfolio. Known her for her warm, empathetic and spirited interviewing style, she has spoken with everyone from Dame Joanna Lumley to Sir Michael Palin and regularly hosts events at major literary festivals like the Hay and Henley. She continues to contribute as a columnist, writing passionately about pushing boundaries in midlife, and also covers food, interiors, travel and books. We'll be diving into how the media landscape has changed for midlife women, what inspires her work today, and the power of telling women's stories with heart and honesty. She is currently also smashing marathons left, right, and centre. I am so excited to talk to you today. Gaby Huddart, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Kate. Well, you know what? I'm a huge fan of yours, so it's really lovely to be here.
No, do you know what? It was funny because I know that we've been in touch, via social media, the powers that are, and obviously I bumped into you in real life recently, and we could have sort of missed the event that we were at and happily chatted for hours. So I was like, right, come on, let's do this. Let's get you on the podcast. And I know we were just talking about before you came on. We'd hoped to do it in person so that we could get you in the cold water as well.
Yes,
Get you.
I'm still not convinced about that. You convinced me of many things, but the power of cold water is the one that everybody talks about it, but I don't like being cold. So so one day you've got to tempt me in there, and we'll have to record it for posterity.
It will be so good for your marathon training, which we are going to come to.
Yes.
But I want to go a little way back because you've had an incredible career in publishing. What brought you into journalism, and how did you find your voice as an editor and an interviewer? Because I think that's probably been quite a hard thing to do. So I'd love to hear sort of the story behind.
Yeah, what first brought me into journalism was after university going travelling for what was supposed to be a year, but it turned into 3 years. And I discovered this sort of passion for going to different places and sort of a passion for adventure, and realised that a sort of, what would allow me to have a job where I could still get to be curious and see different things. And so, not having really known what I wanted to do, I'd done a history degree. I then sort of thought, oh, journalism, that would be a good thing. And so, in a very tough economic climate at the time, managed to get my first ever job as a sub editor on Computer Weekly, and was utterly thrilled to be to have my sort of, my into the industry. And then, basically, sort of as time went by, worked. I mean, I think I've been sort of fairly good at having ambitions on the way and things that I wanted to work towards. So I then kind of wanted to specialize in food and travel, which I did for quite a long time as my passions. But obviously, I then had two children who they're now 23 and 21. But when you've got young children, you can't really travel so much. So then I sort of moved into women's magazines more, and then worked my way up there. I was sort of deputy editor on Woman and Home, and then I was moved to be editor of Prima magazine, and then I moved up at Hearst, ultimately into that role of group editorial director and editor in chief of Good Housekeeping, which I sort of really wanted that job because I'd loved Good Housekeeping from afar. It's an amazing brand, and I did that for 7 years. And I worked my socks off basically, and I have done throughout my career. So I've been a journalist for about 35 years, and then I got to a place last year where I'd been living my dream for a long time, and then suddenly realised, this wasn't really my dream. I'd got ready to reinvent, I think, and I could carry on doing the same job until retirement. But I think I've got more in me to give and more that I really want to do. And so I took maybe a very strange decision. And my financial advisor took a bit of persuading, where just sort of try and reinvent a little bit and do more things. And really over the last year, I've had more freedom. So I'm writing a lot more, because as you move up the editorial ladder, you move away from the thing that first gets you in there, which is interviewing and writing. And basically you become a sort of a leader and a manager. So Going back to the thing that I first loved doing, which is writing and interviewing people. And over the years, I've sort of discovered that I love interviewing well-known people, finding out how people got to where they got to, and have developed really nice relationships with some of them. So yeah, so that's become a passion as well. And then, as you mentioned, the literary festivals as something that sort of emerged over the last few years, and now I'm able to do a lot more of that. So actually, next week I'm in Winchester doing a whole series of interviews there, including Dame Kelly Holmes, which is probably of interest. And then a couple of weeks after that, I'm at Tunbridge Wells doing a whole load of interviews there at the Literary Festival. So that's really fun, and it's really lovely to meet these amazing, inspirational people and find a little bit more about them. So so I've got probably more variety in my life now and more freedom to go and do different things other than just be sort of behind a desk in an office all the time.
That so many things have come up for me there. I always have like some questions, and then obviously me being
Yeah.
me, I kind of sort of like to pick things. I guess let's stick with good housekeeping at the moment and where we are there, just because that was a large part of kind of
Yes.
leading you to where you are now. How has the landscape changed in magazines, I guess, over the time, not just in Good Housekeeping, but from where you did start? Because again, it's quite a broad magazine. It touches on lots of different things. I know that you're very much, you love your health and wellness and your fitness. It was interesting to you say sort of your main passion was sort of the travel side of it to start with, but we all change, don't we? Like you said,
Yes.
kids,
Yes.
things come into our lives, and so we do it. But how has that landscape changed, do you
Well,
think?
I mean, it's a world away from, when my first ever job, when I went in, we were still doing what they call, cutting and paste, sort of galleys of copy, literally on paper, and cutting and pasting bits of paper and sending them off to the typesetters. So it was, and, I mean, that was it. And it was a pure, print magazines. Obviously, now publishing's evolved. It's multi-platform. You can't survive in the industry without being across everything. So, and I'm not just talking websites, but obviously websites and social media and e-newsletters and live events and Apple, stories on Apple News. So it's unbelievably varied in terms of the number of platforms you have to go on. And actually, with far fewer people than when I set out. Obviously, there were the vast teams on most publications. The fact of life is, it's tough. It is tough in media, in all forms of media. And it's not just magazines. Television is the same, because there's more competition for people's attention from diverse forms of other media have come along. So it is a very tough marketplace in terms of the probably more interested for this, in terms of how lives of women have changed over that period. I mean, it's just quite extraordinary, really, what expectations are of the lives of women, and particularly women of 40 plus now, just a world away. If I think about my mum and her generation of women, at 60, they were all retiring at 60. Well, we're all going to be going on to, in terms of working into our late 60s. But moreover, I think there was a real sense of slowing down for women, and life sort of almost narrowing and shrinking in a way, sort of, putting your slippers on and putting your girdle on and sort of putting your feet up, and that was it. And now I think it's because of, our life expectancy is so much longer. We take our health and fitness a lot more seriously. Thanks to HRT, for those of us who can take it, I think that gives you a new lease of life as well. But I think now women of 45, 50, 55 plus are kind of have this whole new lease of life. I mean, I genuinely feel we're in our prime. I mean, life, honestly, this is the best time of my life. I don't know whether you feel the same, but I really feel that.
Love that, and I think it's really important. And actually, I think this is where having people like yourselves at the top bracket of these magazines, and obviously Claire Sanderson, women's
Yeah.
health, just driving that narrative and driving that change, because it's perhaps an appreciation, and this is no criticism, of younger editors or younger journalists who haven't lived that life stage, might not know. And obviously sometimes the language around midlife, menopause can be really negative. So
Yes.
unless you've got that lived experience and you're surrounded by women, it. So I guess, like, pulling on that, how did you work to shift that narrative around midlife women when it came to menopause and aging, when you realised that it was more acceptable to, 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 to allow that to happen within the publications?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, a lot of it is storytelling, and that's what we all do. And I mean, you all know this from all the people that you meet, Kate, and from the people you interview in your podcast and everybody, there is, it is genuine just looking out for the stories of women, and that is how women, of a lot of women, if they're able to, how they're choosing to live their life now. So it's driven by, when you're editing a publication, you're looking for trends. You're not creating the trend. What you're looking for is where trends are emerging to make people aware of them. So where you see this trend of the fact that women are reinventing what midlife looks like, essentially you're just looking for those stories and then reporting on them. And there are more and more and more of those stories as we went along. So it's not something that I created or Claire's created or anyone else. We're just noticing that this is happening, and it's happening for a variety of reasons. I mean, while I was at Good Housekeeping in 2022, we celebrated the 100th birthday of Good Housekeeping in the UK, and for that we looked back at the lives of women from 100 years ago. And only 100 years ago, a woman's life expectancy was her early mid 50s. In 100 years, our life expectancy has gone up by over 30 years. So not only are we living, we can now, most of us expect to live to our mid 80s. Well, 100 years ago, that was mid 50s. Moreover, we can expect to live healthier for longer. Then, the advent of HRT has absolutely made a massive difference to a lot of women, and understanding the fact that menopause isn't taboo anymore. People want information about how to cope with menopause. It's a life stage. It's something that women have to navigate, but it doesn't need to. It's not at the ending of something. I think it's the beginning of a different life stage, and actually probably the best stage of your life.
I do love that. Although, do you know what? The one thing that does worry me, we are living longer, but women are living longer in poorer health. So
Mm.
there is a definite, there's still, yet we've got, as you say, HRT, which can obviously help with sort of menopausal transition. I still feel like, the gender health gap, which we could, that would be for a
Yes,
whole podcast.
yes,
It is there that obviously, we, as I say, we're living longer, but in poorer health. But you've spoken with a lot of iconic women, and have any of your conversations specifically touched? Can you think of one person where there was a real menopause conversation and what it meant to them to age in the public eye? I mean, obviously, you just said you're going to be talking to Dame Kelly, and I know she's been very honest about her struggles with menopause, amongst other things. I'm just wondering if there's anyone that springs to your mind that had.
that's a really good question. I mean, we'll talk. We talk to lots of people. It will come into the conversation. I mean, I guess people that you will know. People like Louise Minchin, who's been quite vocal about menopause, and Gabby Logan. Obviously, we did a big interview with last year. I'm trying to think of some of the more sort of the iconic, because I'm very fortunate that to have met Michelle Obama and Joanna Lumley, who you mentioned, who I just absolutely adore everything about
She's pretty positive
about her.
when it comes to aging, isn't she, Joanna Lumley?
Oh, she's amazing. I mean, she just got so much get up and go. And then last year, I was very fortunate to meet Dame Judi Dench, and I mean, that was a cover that I worked 17 years to get that cover. Finally got that. But I think with all of them, rather than sort of there being a massive focus on menopause with them, they are just, they haven't slowed down, I guess, is the thing that they've done. They have continued. And actually, one of the main things is, if you've got a passion, if you're passionate about something, and you have passion and you have purpose in your life, then that is probably the most de-aging thing, because you've got positivity and you get up in the morning and you've got to get up and go because you want to do something. And I suppose with all of those people, they have passion and they have purpose, and I think that's what most of us have to try and for ourselves, if that makes sense. And rather than being a sort of, a medical thing or whatever, if you get up in the morning and you feel driven in some way to do something, that is the kind of the best way to achieve longevity, because it's keeping your mind stimulated. If your mind is stimulated, your body's stimulated, and it gives you energy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love that, and it sort of almost as if you would have known what was kind of coming next. In that, I think to that point where finding something, I do feel that this can be a time that many women feel invisible, and I know weirdly that was definitely one of my symptoms. Although I was showing up, I felt very invisible in midlife. Did you ever feel that? And I'm just wondering whether that has something to do with your like you're saying, this transition that you went through and finding this new thing. Did you ever feel invisible yourself? And I guess, how do we then collectively begin to change that for other women who might be listening now and go like, wow, Gabby's done all of that and she's, massive risk, massive transition. But
Yeah.
did you ever have that thing where you maybe felt invisible or just
I don't know. The word invisible doesn't really resonate with me, because I kind of think, because I'm quite vocal, I think. And if I felt that, I would just like, hang on a minute. I think I probably have had battles with confidence, which is what I would say over time. There have been times when I felt a bit, a bit blue and a bit sort of lacking in confidence. And then I think I've come through that and genuinely feel that this is prime time. This is, and actually for me, and it wouldn't be right for everybody. I was talking with a couple of girlfriends about it this week. I need, for me to feel is a sense of challenge in my life. And I think that's where, with my job, because I'd done, I'd done it. I'd given it absolutely everything I could give it, but I was possibly heading towards burnout because I worked really long hours. And also, I'd done that job for 7 years, and I think I'd given it everything that I could give it. But I was getting up in the morning and not feeling challenged anymore. And when you don't feel that sense of purpose or challenge, then you can things get a bit grey, and you start, feeling a bit ordinary, I guess. And so over the last year, I've been giving myself all these different challenges, things that scare me. And rather than running away from what scares me, I tend to, now my whole attitude is like, I'm going to run towards it. So I think I told you, I've done it in the last year. I've done a skydive. I've done, I can't sing or dance, but I did a musical theatre course, which was hilarious. I did rally driving. I'm a bit afraid of driving, so I did a rally driving course. I'm doing a stand-up comedy course, help me, at the end of this month, and all these things that I find kind of quite terrifying. It's like, okay, well, run towards them, because what's the worst that can happen? Yes, you might be really bad at something. You might not be able to sing like other people, but you might learn something about yourself in the process, and it's a new life experience. And I just feel I want to fill my life with new experiences, not to, it's sounding really a bit showy offy. I'm not to show off to anyone else. It's for myself. And because I'm now nearing empty nest stage, girls are nearly, coming through uni and everything. What is the next stage? Because I don't want to put my slippers on and put my feet up. I've got loads more that I want to do and loads more that I want to give. And if yeah, and feel challenged and feel energetic and feel alive. I just want to feel alive every day.
I
And
love that. Like, you're putting the biggest smile on my face, and I'm writing so many things down here because I think, as you said, you mentioned some of the women that you'd interviewed that are doing these challenges, and obviously, I know that Louise mentioned who you mentioned. She does
yeah,
crazy stuff too, and likes pushing those boundaries. And I think that is, I will do some of those things with you. Take me on one of your journeys because I do love that. People with, there are so many things. I mean, I'd like to swim the channel. I'd like to do,
yeah,
sort of. I mean, I even said to my kids, I'm 50 next year, I'd quite like to climb Everest. And they were like, that's just a bit selfish because if something happens to you, we lose you. And I'm thinking, okay, so what challenges can you do that are, and I love that. I love musical theatre. I mean, that's amazing. Skydiving, stand up, we're all coming to watch you. It's brilliant, and I love the way you've reframed fear, because like you said, so many of us can't grow or we don't grow, but running towards that fear, and embracing it, I think that is a really exciting way of reframing it. One thing you didn't mention there, which I would love to talk about, because I know when I saw you in person, you were about to run a marathon, and I think whilst we're recording this now, you've got another one. Um,
yeah, yeah.
well, I mean, let's just talk about that a little bit because I know you were having a few aches and pains as well last time.
Yeah, I mean, I ran the Brighton Marathon on the 6th of April, and I'm doing London on the 27th of April. So I've done the London Marathon the last 2 years, and that was, I mean, I mean, honestly, Kate, when I've just written a piece of the Times about it, but when I was a kid, you were more likely to find me smoking silk cut behind the bike shed rather than out on the athletics track. I was never a sporty kid. I just wasn't. And it was only really kind of in my late 20s and as a way of trying to, because I was sitting behind a desk and getting fatter and fatter, and really as a way of trying to control my weight, that I first got into, any exercise in my late 20s, and then just kind of did it really as a way of sort of of controlling weight. But it was only really sort of in much later, sort of mid-40s onwards, that I got into kind of actually enjoying exercise. And then in the COVID lockdowns, it became this sort of release, going out for the daily jog, like for lots of us, where I was going out running every day because that's all we were allowed to do, but discovering that actually it was my escapism. I used to put on Audible and listen to crime fiction, discovered this absolute passion for crime fiction, which I didn't know I had. And then found myself, through doing that every day, I was getting fitter and stronger and feeling better about myself. And then post-COVID, my daughter, her first year at uni, my second daughter went off to uni a couple of years ago, and then announced that she got herself a place in the London Marathon. And I just was like, oh my God, I've always wanted to do that. And it's one of those things I've always talked about, but she actually got herself a place. And I just sort of said, oh, how would you feel if I did it too? And so she was like, yeah, okay. So she went off to uni, and I got a place, and it was the most brilliant bonding thing for us, because she was running down in Exeter and doing her training, and I was doing it in the streets of South London. But we just send each other little messages and find out how our training was going. And kind of really, oh, have you been out for a run today yet, or whatever. We didn't run it together because she's faster than me, but we did our first marathon in 2023, and I honestly thought I'll be a one and you're done marathon person. But actually, and I think some people, that is right, I absolutely loved it. I loved it so much, because I think in my heart or in my head, I'm not a sporty person. And so for me, it was like, wow, if I can do this, honestly, and I really believe if I can do this, anybody can, honestly. And I was like, oh wow, I could do it. So I went again, I did it again last year at London, and managed to take 10 minutes off my time.
That's just phenomenal.
And then this year, yeah, but I am quite slow. I'm quite slow.
No,
So
you're
this
not.
year, I really wanted to kind of go again. So, and then I thought, okay, well, what's a bigger challenge? So I'm doing the two marathons in 3 weeks apart is the thing. Brighton, I have to say, didn't go quite as planned, because I really wanted to come in at 4.5 hours, and I came in at just a smidge over 5. But it was very hot and it was very hilly. I got a stitch at mile 15, which slowed me down a bit. And as you say, I've had a slight hip injury in the run up, which is sort of, I'm coping with it. But anyway, it's all to play.
When you say coping with it, do you mean ignoring it?
No, I have been seeing an osteopath. I've had a scan. It's nothing serious. I actually did it doing Pilates last September. I just was a bit over enthusiastic with the Pilates and started throwing my leg around too much, and I just pulled some soft tissue. But no, it's fine. I'm kind of, but actually, having run the marathon, it's a bit better. It's better than it was. So I think maybe running on it has been a good thing. But yeah, so 27th of April is the London Marathon, and I am determined I'm going to get a PB. I really am gunning to come in about 4.5, 4 hours 45. I really, really want to shave a bit of time off. Yeah,
Have you
love
got
it.
anyone
I love
running
it.
with you? Is your daughter doing this one with you as well?
No, because she's now her final year, so she's having a year off for good behaviour, and to do her concentrate on her studies. So yeah, so I'm just doing this one.
If it doesn't go according to plan, I'm hoping to do next year. So
Yes,
we can talk
we'll
about
do it together.
do it together and train. And I'm hoping to get. I want to get a PB in my 50th year.
Yeah,
Because I think that it's not putting pressure on yourself, and I think it's great to have those goals, and I do love it, and I think it's really important to obviously say, to the listeners, that you started this journey then in your mid 40s, your running journey.
yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, I honestly was so unsporty at school as a young person. I mean, in my 20s, I did do a few 10Ks, but as I say, it was motivated more. I didn't love it in the way that I love it now. I did it because it was a way of basically controlling my body and my body shape, which I think when you go from being a young person to suddenly, you're in an office job and you're sat behind a desk, I think that comes as a bit of a shock because, when you're a kid, you can generally get away with eating what you want and not having to care. And you can't, obviously that changes as an adult when you're sitting behind a desk for long hours. But I can genuinely say that falling in love with exercise has really happened from my mid 40s onwards, and really more in my 50s even. I mean, it's really been in my 50s. And then actually kind of for mental health, which I know everybody talks a lot about now, it definitely it really helps in terms of mood. If I'm a pretty optimistic person, but if I ever do have a bit of a down day, which I don't like the winter at all, but if I put on my running shoes and go out, and I don't really care what the weather's doing, if it's raining, I love running in the rain. And you go out and you just feel so much better. And I now have the mother of all playlists I put together this year, 7.5 hours of music that I love. So I used to listen to Audible, and I've discovered that actually listening to music, guess what? This is why people listen to music. I'm running a lot faster listening to music than I was listening to crime fiction.
What would it be to push you over the line to get your PB?
Oh God! Oh my God! The mother of all playlists. It's on this phone. I
Mine
love. Well,
at the moment, I'd go with, and this is just totally weird because most people,
yeah.
the Eye of the Tiger or like something, and mine at the moment would have to be either Dancing Through Life or Defying Gravity from Wicked soundtrack. I mean, that's how weird.
Oh, do you know what? And it always gets me going. This is the one that gets me on the dance floor as well. Is "Shut Up and Dance with Me." I love that. I love that song. If you put that on, you have to dance. I defy anyone not to dance if that's on the soundtrack.
Yeah, and I think there is something here, but just pulling it back to sort of where we were saying earlier in the conversation, saying like finding the passion, getting up and doing something work wise. I think we're on the subject of exercise, and I'm going to come to you about strength training because I
Yeah.
to you to start
Yes.
that a little
Yes.
bit. But we're going to do this, and I don't know when this podcast is coming out. I'm happy to share what we're going to be doing, but we're doing a
Yeah.
strength in summer a course, which obviously you can more than welcome to come on the app and join. And I was just thinking, so many women find it so hard to be motivated, but we're going to have every morning play a song that just inspires, like wakes you up and gets you going. Because I can tell you now, there have been some mornings when I'm teaching at 6:30 and I come down and I'm just not quite ready. And and if you're teaching and you're taking a class, you need to have that energy to give to the people.
Yeah.
And I literally hit like doom on my Sonos, and there'll be a song and that's it, and I'm dancing and I'm ready, and then I'm in the zone. And I think that perhaps because of social media, because of phones, and we're all scrolling and it's TikTok, I know music is still very much there, but to use music to inspire and motivate, you've pointed out that with running it's really great, but just a simple thing, just put it on in the morning, maybe not listen to the news first thing and get some bad news, or scroll on your phone and start comparing yourself before you've even stepped foot out of bed. Put on a really cracking song, jump,
Hanging song.
yeah, and feel motivated to go and do some movement.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, this playlist, I love it. And every time I think, and some songs remind you of people that you love as well. But you put this on and you kind of, if it's on in the house, I will dance around the house. But if it's on, when I'm running, it just makes me go. It makes me go. I just love it. I love it. But yeah, Shut Up and Dance with Me would probably be song number one.
We're going to see you, London, Gabby, like a shut up. She's actually not telling you to shut up. She's just banging on, singing her song,
Yeah.
drive herself. But let's talk about that. Just obviously after you've done your marathon training and you've done your marathon. What is are you strength training, Gabby?
Yeah, so this is interesting. I mean, you will know all about this. I did a challenge to the Caribbean in October, which was a sort of 4 days of lots of hilly running for a charity called the Sandals Foundation. And there were only about 20 of us. But on this thing, I met two people who are High Rocks influencers. I'd never even heard of High Rocks, never heard of it.
You're doing one, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I hadn't even heard of it. Since then, so came back, and I went to London Excel, to watch them. And in the meantime, I discovered a couple of other people younger than me, seem to know all about it. People in their 20s and 30s, and I went and watched it. And my word, it's like a modern day gladiatorial ring. It was the biggest buzz. I mean, it kind of a bit cultish, but it's like, oh, this is incredible. So I've got a bit fascinated by it, and I have actually started doing a weekly high rocks class locally to where I live, because it is the holy grail of exercise, really. I mean, not only is it running, which is part of it for me, but obviously strength is part of it, and flexibility. And I know for me that was something I really need to work on is flexibility, because actually running a lot makes you stiff. It does make your joints stiff, and I'm trying to get much better about stretching after running now. I haven't historically been very good at that, but obviously it makes a difference. But the high rocks training I've added in, and once I've got the marathons out the way, I want to up the high rocks training, with a view to doing a high rocks.
You've got a partner. I will be your partner.
Yay!
Don't go
Oh, it would be
promoting
so
yourself
cool.
to anyone else, because I can't find anyone that wants to do one with me.
Oh, well, I mean, you'll be amazing. But the two bits that really terrify me, having been to watch it, is the section of burpees, because I hate doing one burpee, let alone doing this massive course of burpees. And then also the lunges, because I think, with high rocks, you have to touch your knee on the ground
Yeah.
for the lunges course. So those, for me, are the two things that are going to be quite challenging. But, that's also what I love about exercising. It doesn't, you can still improve at any age. And I interviewed somebody, her Instagram handle is Badass Gran. Her name is Celia Duff. And she is now 71, and she's been a double world champion in high rocks. And I've actually been to her gym in Cambridge and trained with her now, because I've got a little bit obsessed with her, because I just think she's so inspirational. She can lift weights, probably double what I can lift.
Amazing.
And she's 70. Yeah, she's amazing. And I mean, she got into that age 67, 68, just when and she's transformed herself, and again got this new lease of life and energy, and transformed her body in her 70s. I mean, so yeah. But high rocks is hardcore, so that's my next challenge after the marathons are out the way. I definitely want to do that, and yes, I'd love to do one with you.
You heard it here first. Gabby and I will be doing high rocks somewhere next year.
Yes, yes,
2026. It's in my 50th
it's a
year
deal.
as well. So I can do a marathon and high rocks in my 50th year.
Of course you can.
Great.
Of course you can. Yeah.
That's what we're aiming for. Now I'm very aware of time. I could sit here and we could sit all day. But I'm gonna just put it back. If someone is listening, woman in her 40s, 50s, and she is feeling a bit lost or unsure about what's next, and I think that this has been such a positively positive podcast,
Mm.
which I'm so excited to share with people, because you radiate, positivity and energy. What about what's next you give or offer her?
Okay, so it's very okay. So loads of things. I think one thing is, I think women we're our own fiercest critics. We can be really harsh with ourselves. And actually, probably I am a really positive person, but we're also in a gorgeous spring where the sun is shining outside. If we were doing this in the autumn or winter, I have down days in the autumn and winter. I don't like winter. I don't like short days. I don't, and we all have those days. So, some things that I've learned is I now try to be my own best friend if I am having a down day. And I think we can all be quite hard on ourselves and quite harsh, and like, why haven't you done this? And why aren't you, whatever it is, whether it's work or home, why aren't you more successful? Why don't you run faster? Why aren't you thinner? Why aren't you whatever it is? And now I try that inner voice that we tend to be quite hard or quite critical of ourselves. I try and think, what would my best friend say to me? And actually, my best friend would say, you've done this, you've done that, you've got this. And just try and turn it and be a little bit more kind to ourselves, like you would to a best friend. Say, you're doing great. You think of all the the amazing things you've done.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is sort of, I mean, none of this is very revolutionary, is actually talking to real friends, because girlfriends are always amazing at having a different perspective. You want either supporting you, your real girlfriends will support you come what may. However many times you muck up in life, they'll always catch you when you fall. And that's what good girlfriends should do. And, it's always be supportive, but also they'll have a different perspective, and they'll have ideas, and sometimes you can't always think of everything on your own. So I think your inner voice, your girlfriends, and then, I mean, the whole thing of exercise is, you cannot but feel better, even if it's just going for a walk, just getting outside and running or walking or just taking yourself away from the place that's making you feel miserable for a bit. And then the other thing is probably journaling, is kind of actually writing things down. Sometimes writing things down can be really powerful. If you feel stuck, you know, writing down all the things that you feel you're stuck. And then, you know, I suppose the hardest thing is thinking what you do want to do next, and is just sort of writing down random things that, and it doesn't have to be work or home, or, you know, just things that you would like to do in your life. And then you can't do all of them, but maybe there's one thing that you can make happen. You know, maybe there's one thing that you can make happen. And actually, if you do one thing, then you feel good, and then then you can do the next one on your list. But I think writing things down is quite a helpful thing. Always remember, everything changes. So if you're wherever you are now and this year, in a year's time, everything's going to look completely different. It just does, doesn't it? Things happen, things change.
I think I do love that, and I think it's that sort of phrase, isn't it? Look how far you've come, not how far you have to go.
Yeah.
So many of us, as you say, can be too critical. Thank you for those pieces of advice. Finally, my last question. What is exciting you most right now? And that's whether it's a personal passion or a professional project.
The marathon, I am excited to go out on the 27th of April. I am excited about that because I think I've got it in my legs to go faster. So I am excited about that. I'm absolutely terrified of the stand-up comedy course, which is starting the day after the marathon. I'm utterly terrified.
You might not be standing up, might be a sit-down comedy.
I know. I don't know what possessed me to sign up, but anyway, let's see. And I'm now very excited about doing a doubles high rocks with you, Kate. That's
Oh,
go us.
I'm going to get off. When we're off, I'm going to get up, I'm going to look, and I'm going to find one. I think we should go somewhere nice, like Paris or somewhere adventurous.
Love the idea of that.
Gabby, thank you so much for your time. Good luck. As I say, I'm not sure if this will be out after the marathon or before. Either way, Gabby's done it. She's smashed it. I know she's going to. And if this comes out before, we're wishing you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me this morning.
Total pleasure. Thank you, Kate, so much.